Okay, I don't have my mic in, so if you can barely hear me, I'm sorry. My boyfriend is really sick, so you're going to hear him hacking, coughing, various other things a lot during this video. Just ignore it because the tips and tricks that I'm about to give you hopefully will help you a lot in your passive hydro journey. So please just ignore his coughing and hacking and just focus on the tips, the tricks, and ignore that. Hello girls, gays, and bays, and welcome to my plant tube channel, Soil Free B. It is my lecaversary. Happy 1 year lecaversary to me. I have a lot of tips and tricks to share with you in regards to passive hydroponics and growing in leca that I want to share. After a year of growing in semi-hydro, I have killed a lot of plants, I have root rotted a lot of plants, I have stunted growth on a lot of plants, but now, a year later, I think that I have got leca down, I've gotten passive hydro down, and I want to share my tips and tricks with you. So let's go ahead and get into it. My first tip is underwatering is better than overwatering. What I mean by this is underwatering versus overwatering. I have a little plant here. It's in a 3-inch pot. Plants in leca can still get root rot. Don't think that they can't get root rot because they have water roots grown. That does not matter. They can get root rot. It's better for your cash po to have an inch, be like here, than for you to raise that reservoir and have it like halfway, like maybe like 2 inches up. You don't want that. You want to make sure that you have a smaller reservoir and that these roots are growing into the reservoir. They will sense that that water is there. They will grow fuzzy water roots, and then those roots are built to sit in the reservoir, but they're not built to sit in the reservoir for weeks and weeks and weeks. Those roots are still able to get rot. Let's say you go on vacation and you're like, oh, my passive hydro plants, I'm just going to raise the reservoir and they'll be fine. I can go for 2 weeks. No, you're going to come back and that plant is most likely going to be rotted. The roots that have grown are going to be rotted because these roots can handle water, but they still don't want to be overwatered. No plant wants to be overwatered. The next tip that I have is go to your local semi-hydro store. I bought all of my net pots from Amazon. I recently, honestly, like literally a couple weeks ago, went to a hydroponics store with my roommate. Are you okay, buddy? She fell. With my roommate, and the net pots there were literally like 30 cents. Like 30 cents each. They had 3-inch pots. They had 5-inch pots, 6-inch pots, 8-inch pots, 10-inch pots. I got a couple 6-inch pots. They were only 50 cents. Like 50 cents. And I will put the price for my net pots that I bought on Amazon on the screen here. Way overpriced compared to your local semi-hydro store. Find your nearest semi-hydro store. Run there and get the net pots there, okay? My next tip is smaller pots are better for transition. Let's say you have a 5-inch plant and this plant has a good amount of roots in it and you get all the dirt off of the roots and you're ready to repot and you're about to plop that plant back into a 5-inch pot. There's a big chance that that plant is going to take a lot longer to grow water roots because those roots were built for dirt and those roots are going to be looking for dirt. This baby here, I actually repotted into a 4-inch pot because it was in a 4-inch pot originally. I repotted it in leca in a 4-inch pot and it did nothing for months. And so I took it out and I put it in moss and it started rooting. I put it in moss for probably like 2 months and then it got some pretty nice water roots and I was like, I'm gonna put it back into leca. I put it in leca, but I put it in this much smaller pot. I put it in a 3-inch pot and it took off in this 3-inch pot. It literally took off. Like, look at all these roots. It grew significantly. I've propagated it. So I have 4 propagations right now that are water rooting. It already popped out 2 leaves after being propagated. And my recommendation is down pot if you're transferring into leca. From dirt to leca, down pot. Your plants are going to thank you for it. They're going to have an easier adjustment because they're in a smaller pot and their roots are lower in the leca reservoir. They're going to be able to sense that there's water in the reservoir way sooner, and they're going to shoot out those water roots to try and take care of the plant. So that way the plant can get water and can grow and can be nice and large. That is my 3rd tip for you. A down pot instead of up potting. If you're transferring to leca, it's always better to down pot, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. My 4th tip for you today is to expect transplant shock. There's nothing you can do about transplant shock. I mean, obviously Super Thrive. I put Super Thrive in all of my plants that are getting transported, as well as I put a nutrient called Rapid Start. It's a general hydroponics nutrient, and I put that in all of my nutrient waters. And that also helps with root branching. If you like calatheas and you're like, I feel like transferring my plant to semihydro or to passive hydro, I want to tell you that calathea is gonna go down to 1 or 2 leaves. In my experience, every calathea that I have transferred has gone down to 1, 2 leaves, maybe even 0 leaves. Like, it's gonna be sad, okay? It's gonna be a little sad. It'll be worth it in the end, because I promise you that calatheas love leca as long as they're in a small pot. They want to be in a small pot so that way they can just shoot their roots out. Trust me. Expect transplant shock. Expect leaves to yellow and fall off. And don't be scared, okay? Don't let yellow leaves, don't let all the leaves falling off, and just don't let that scare you, okay? I promise you that plant is going to come back. It'll be fine as long as you just leave it alone. Keep the reservoir small. The plants are going to sense that there's water there. They're going to shoot out water roots, and those water roots are going to be very, very happy once they reach the water. So that is my 4th tip. Expect transplant shock, expect yellow leaves, and don't fear them. Don't fear the transplant shock, okay? It'll be okay. My next tip is to keep the humidity high when you're transplanting, transporting, transferring, whatever you want to call it. Keep the humidity high. I mean, like, put the humidifier directly next to the plant that you're transferring. I never recommend transferring like 8 plants at once. Transfer maybe 4 plants at most. Put your humidifier directly in the middle of all these plants, and then put them around the humidifier. You know, the humidifier is their god, and these plants are surrounding their god, and they're just like, please, humidifier, bring me back to life. Make sure the humidity is high. My next tip is, when rooting cuttings in leca, lower the reservoir. What I mean is, whenever I root plants, I root them in a little cup. I put 3-inch pots inside of a glass cup. I recommend, if you are rooting cuttings, root them in glass, because the glass will create this humidity dome, and then the node is going to sense that, hey, there's water down there because there's all this humidity that's being built in this cup, and it'll shoot out water roots. Some plants are faster at rooting than other plants, but you guys probably know this, like scindapsuses are slow to root, like philodendrons, Hoyas, things like that are very, very fast to water root. I always recommend that putting like smaller net pots or nursery pots, however you prefer it, inside of a glass container, just plopping them, and then filling the reservoir up, but not super high. Let me show you. Okay, so this is what I mean. So this is a variegated burl marks that I got probably like 2 weeks ago. I have a 3-inch net pot right here, and this is the glass that I use to root anything that I'm transferring into leca, I always use these little glass containers. I always use 3-inch net pots. And what I do is I kind of keep the reservoir like directly where the net pot meets the water. I don't want it any higher than that. I don't really want it any lower than that either. And they root things root very fast. Look, this already has fuzzy water roots coming out. It even has these chunky roots down here growing into the water. This is how I root anything in leca. Even my cuttings, I keep them in the 3-inch container. I put the water down like right here where the reservoir meets the net pot, and they root super duper fast. That's what I recommend, keeping the reservoir kind of low when you're rooting cuttings, so that way your roots will branch into the water. They will sense that water is there. They will reach for it, and they will push out fuzzy, beautiful roots. I promise you that. My 7th tip is you can let roots sit in water. In net pots and nursery pots, I think both are completely fine. You just don't want to overwater. Yes, your leca roots can sit in the reservoir. Can they sit in a very, very high reservoir that they're not used to? No. They can sit in a normal, regular reservoir for as long as possible. Like, as long as that plant is just gulping up that water, it's fine. I water my plants on a weekly basis, and every single Monday I water my plants. I put a small cash po, like usually about 2 inches for all of my plants. By the next Monday, they need to be watered again. As long as you are Miss Rug, so as long as you're not letting them sit in this reservoir for weeks and weeks and weeks, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna do great. It's okay to let your water roots sit in water because they're built to sit in water. It's not okay to overwater them and ambush them with a huge amount of water that they're not normally used to, because water roots can still rot. I picked her up wrong, I'm sorry. So my last and final tip is actually something that somebody told me at my local semihydro store. I really don't like the floragrowseries. It's 3 separate nutrients that you mix into one nutrient, and to me, honestly, it's so much. I add a lot of nutrient to my nutrient water. I actually use hakunalaplanta's. I use all of the nutrients that he uses for his plant. I will link his video down below about his nutrients that he uses for his plants, because I just use all of those. I use all of them. I copy pasted. It works, okay? I went to my local semihydro store and I was just complaining. I was like, yo, I literally cannot stand the floragrowseries. Like, I have to put 3 things into the nutrient water on top of the other 4 things that I have to add into my nutrient water. It's just not it. He actually recommended me Flora Nova to replace those 3 nutrients. I haven't used it yet, but because he works in a semihydro store, I trust him. If you are a passive hydroponic grower and you have any experience with Flora Nova by General Hydroponics, comment down below. Tell me your experience. Tell me everything, because I want to know if I should get it once I run out of my nutrients that I have right now. That is it. That's all the tips and tricks that I have for you today. Happy lecaversary again. Happy lecaversary. All my plants are doing very well a year later. And if you are interested in semihydro, if you have any more questions that I didn't answer here about semihydro, comment down below. If you got any sort of knowledge from this video, like and subscribe. If you learned anything from this video, subscribe, okay? Come back to see me. I have a lot of fun content planned for this upcoming month, so please join me in that. Comment, like, subscribe down below. One more time for me. What did I say? Subscribe, yes. Please come back again, because I will be here next week for more planty content, and I'll see you then.